Good evening. I call to order this meeting of the Concord Planning Board on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024 at 7:03 p.m. The Planning Board is convening this hybrid meeting at 141 Kais Road and by video conference using the Zoom application. This meeting will be recorded for future on-demand viewing. I'd like to welcome everyone attending this meeting and take attendance of members and staff. I'm Rob Almeida.
Here.
Mark Giddings.
Here.
Sue Felshen.
Here.
And I'm Linda Miller and I'm present, and Andrew Boardman and Abby Flanagan are not here at this point. I think that's right. Abby. Okay, and our town planner Elizabeth Hughes is here. I'll briefly review our meeting procedures. Each vote will be conducted by roll call. There will be public participation during certain portions of the meeting. Those participating remotely wishing to make a statement or ask a question during a public participation period should use the Zoom raise hand function or *9 on a phone and wait to be recognized. Once recognized, you may unmute yourself in Zoom or use *6 from a phone and then speak. When you speak, please address the chair. Identify yourself by name, address, and any relevant affiliations, and speak clearly for the meeting record. Comments during public participation are limited to 3 minutes or less, except for extenuating circumstances, such as for those with disabilities, and are requested to be respectful. Answers to questions, unless very brief and fact-based, will be deferred for follow-up at future meetings. The board welcomes written comments at any time instead of or in addition to those made during public participation. We'll now go to the first item on the agenda, which will in fact be public comment. Public comments limited to 15 minutes with no more than 3 minutes allocated to any one speaker. Public comment is limited to items that are not on tonight's agenda. And so I will request of the
Carol's the only participant.
Carol, do you have any public comment?
Since Carol is a known entity, you are able to mute and unmute yourself, Carol, if you need to.
Okay.
And I do not have any public comment this evening thus far.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for being here as well. So it's kind of like, I feel like, what is it? If a tree falls in the forest, if Carol is here, then this meeting exists. Okay. Now we will go on to the planning board report and recommendation for town meeting.
Okay, I will. So this is the written report that the planning board submits every year for town meetings when you have warrant articles for zoning bylaw amendments. The Mass General Law, Chapter 48, requires that the board provide a oral or written report to town meeting on any zoning bylaw amendments and the position of the board, the recommendation to town meeting. The board generally provides a written report so that it can be on the handout table for people. So Article 34 starts with the MBTA Community Multifamily Overlay District. The recommendation is that the town meeting take affirmative action on Article 34 for the reasons explained in the warrant. Also, town council is suggesting that the actual map be included in this report and be part of the motion as a procedural precaution, because it was not actually printed in the warrant. Even though the map is referenced in the warrant article, the districts are outlined in the warrant article as far as their location. But just to make sure there's no procedural issues with the Attorney General or with compliance with the state. This is kind of just a double procedural check to include the map, even though was submitted, with the warrant, it's with the town clerk, it's on the website, and, that is why the motion will read, that, town take affirmative action on Article 34 is printed in the warrant, and amend the zoning map to add the 5 MBTA communities multifamily district, as described in the warrant and shown in the planning board's recommendation report dated, and it'll be dated today. The second one, I get the remaining 3, there's been, the board's not making any amendments to those articles, to what was submitted to the warrant. So the recommendation is just that the town, take affirmative action for the reasons explained in the warrant. And then the motion is, as printed in the warrant, and that would be for the remaining 3. The first article, requires only a majority vote. The other 3 require a 2/3 supermajority vote.
Just a question, because the latter 2 go on a consent calendar. If they go on a consent calendar, and for some odd reason, the consent calendar was only approved by a majority, would then they have to come off? I'm just asking because I just thought of it. But-
No, I think the town moderator will make sure that the consent
Consent
calendar
calendar.
is also approved by a supermajority.
Okay,
But good procedural note. I will make sure that that is indeed what happens.
I mean, generally, if it's on the consent calendar, it does get a supermajority. I mean, just
Generally, but-
generally, so it probably wouldn't have even been considered to be there.
No,
it's
but
just-
it's the
It's a good point, yeah.
procedural issues that keep me up in the middle of the
Okay.
night.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
No, ask the question now,
Okay.
then it becomes town moderator's responsibility to make sure it happens.
And then, well, then I will ask another procedural issue if you're gonna. I just, we can put the map in without specifically identifying each parcel, is that
Correct, yeah.
correct? Okay,
Because the parcels are identified in the warrant.
Also for a zoning map, you just need to have the map that documents the boundaries. You're not required to individually list parcels. Because there's, a lot of zoning districts that get adopted, not so much in Concord anymore, but in a lot of other communities. May not be based on parcel lines. They could be based on geographic,
Okay,
roads,
Right.
and other things.
got it. Okay. Then we need to vote on, or I guess we need to make a motion. Could I have a motion? To. Okay,
Sure. I move that the planning board adopt the Town of Concord 2024 Annual Town Meeting Planning Board Recommendation Report and motions for Articles 34, 35, 36, and 37 dated.
It'll be dated.
Oh,
today's
no,
date.
I don't need the date in the motion. That's what I
Mm.
move.
okay, do we have a second?
second.
Okay, then, I'll ask Rob Almeida,
Yes.
Mark Giddings,
Yes.
Sue Felshen,
Aye.
and yes, from Linda Miller. So we have a unanimous vote. on that. And now we are going on to, handouts discussion.
Again, it's not required, but generally the board has a special additional handout that they want. The board reviews it and votes to agree, yes, that's the handout we want to put forward. So Linda and I have been, it's still been a whirlwind. And so we are still working on, finalizing the presentation, and my suggestion to Linda is that the planning board has this very extensive FAQ. At the town moderators meeting on Friday, I asked the question, was informed that we will be required to bring 800 copies of any handout. So this is this extensive handout, colored handout, is not an option for us to do in-house. But we can take this handout, pare it down, remove the color so it's black and white, but pare it down so it's, 2 pages double-sided. That's something that we could probably can do in-house in, like 100 copy batches at a time before town meeting. So I don't know if the board agrees. I can work with Linda to take the FAQ, pare it down to a 2-page double-sided black and white document. It'll say Article 34, frequently asked questions, and that would be the handout on the table.
Yeah, as I told you before, I had no problem with that at all. Okay, I mean, you folks have worked diligently on this. You know what is the critical criteria that should be included in there that people are gonna be wondering about. And I think that's a fine process.
Sue, any thoughts?
When you said 2-page, did you mean 2-sheet, Elizabeth?
Yeah, 2 pages, 2 sheets,
Double-sided, okay, so, all right, that
4
seems like
pages
we might
total.
be able to squeeze it in. There have been occasions on which there have been longer handouts, and if there's really critical stuff, I don't think we should cut ourselves off from going off to 3 sheets, but you're right, we can't possibly include the entire fact, that is out of
Yeah,
hand.
and even, even 3 sheets double-sided, if we, keep it to black and white, that's still something, but, this is 6 pages double-sided, and that's.
I think that because we're first on the agenda on Tuesday night, the people, I mean, like if we were at the end or something, people might sit there and look at it. But people aren't gonna go through 3 pages, and by then we're gonna already be presenting.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Carmen, because sometime, a lot of time they require all handouts to be available on the first night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That
no,
would
I
be
should
different.
think you want them there the first night. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
anyone who comes on the first night will pick it up and read it. And there is always a little bit of time at the beginning of town meeting while we are learning where the fire exits are and so forth, that people frequently
Right.
use to flip through handouts. So even the people who arrive only for Tuesday will have some time to look through a short handout.
Okay,
So I'll get clarification from,
it would be good to
Carmen.
know if we should have them there on.
well, if I
Monday
need
night.
800 copies for
Yeah.
Monday night, and
That's
it may
different.
be 800 copies for Monday night, and bring an additional 500 copies Tuesday. I don't know. I'll ask her what she wants.
Ask, yeah, yeah.
I would guess we'll probably get about 500 people there. Would be my guess, based upon the, cause
For
I'm the warden
Tuesday?
there, so I keep track of how many people we, come in.
What else
Okay.
is on Tuesday? Is the naming on Tuesday, then we'll get definitely a lot of people.
I don't,
The middle school naming. I
the
would-
town moderator is, I don't know if you were there for the question.
No,
The
I
question,
wasn't.
oh, the question was, how far do you think we'll get Monday night? And she said when she first became town moderator, the previous town moderator gave her a keychain with a little crystal ball on it. And
Yeah,
said,
right.
here,
Cause you don't,
yeah.
you don't know.
You don't
know,
Okay.
Her guess is, maybe through the Article 22.
Oh, okay, so we are not first on Tuesday.
Oh, no, we are pre-scheduled for 7:15
Oh, I
for
see.
Tuesday night.
For
We'll take- yeah,
For Article
For
30.
Article 34 only.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the rest are gonna follow in sequential.
Numerical.
So not 34 and 35, so we'll,
I don't
Yeah.
believe so.
so we could be back who knows when, for 35.
Thursday night.
No,
Yeah. No, we don't continue to Thursday. We resume the following Monday if we don't finish on Wednesday, I believe.
I think so.
yeah.
They haven't told me that.
Did you get the mail today with the special town meeting?
Yeah,
Yes, that's pre-scheduled for
Yeah.
Wednesday night.
Yep,
Oh. Mm.
yep.
So, you know,
Okay.
I might,
Okay,
I'll ask her about Article 35.
okay. So, moving right along, I've lost my place, and what we're doing tonight.
Well, what
Yes.
we're also doing on a handout for Article 35, that's basically just a picture of where is residence B and maybe also where is residence C.
No,
Or
I
nothing.
think, nope, I think, no handout. I think, Andrew is just gonna have those, slides.
Right.
In his presentation, and then I'm working with the GIS team to provide like a backup slides for his presentation that says, here's those districts, and then here's all the land that gets excluded. That's, municipal, federal, state, nonprofit.
that'd be an interesting slide, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have that as a backup
Yeah.
slide to his presentation, so
Yeah.
no
Okay,
additional handout.
good. That
Is
sounds
he-
sufficient.
Is he gonna just have one versus the other, or is he gonna like go through a series of removal, removal,
we could-
removal? I don't,
We may have time to do, removal slides.
it might be sort of fun, or not, I don't know.
Yeah, the GIS team is gonna get back to me tomorrow, so.
Okay. See like each layer. Okay, other thoughts? Then moving, so that now, are we moving on to zoning bylaw for parking?
Okay, sure.
And is Sam here tonight or
No,
no? Okay, fine.
Say that again?
Sam from T.
Oh, yeah, no.
Not
He's,
here.
he's done a pretty good presentation. I'm glad he did the summary. I thought that was worthwhile, okay?
Yeah.
So,
Which, I will tell you, that I think the board still has a couple of, maybe 2 hours
of his time.
of his
Oh,
time,
good,
so.
okay, all right,
So if there's,
I'll use
part of
it.
your discussion,
Yeah,
something you wanna flush out,
that's good.
I think there's more time, so.
So, obviously parking is a hot topic. I'm glad we're not trying to do it at this town meeting, okay? We need more time on it, okay? My goal is to, I've already started to talk to constituents. I met with the, West Concord Advisory Council, okay? I hope to meet with as many people as will meet with me to get their concept of what they think about parking should be like in regard to zoning here in Concord. People get confused when you talk about parking and that's not what we're talking about zoning, okay? I think that as you've seen from the presentation that he put together and being around enough, the multi-unit zoning for parking is probably the easiest one to tackle. That's the lowest hanging fruit, okay? And I'm not saying what the end result of that should be, but I can tell you that that's one that will probably be easy to revise to make sense, okay? And I already have in my head, sort of whereas, we've made, conditions already on a couple of places that limit it from 2 to 1.5, okay? So, I need to do some more work on that, okay? But that's gonna be the easy one, okay? I think the
And we
rest,
have that MAPC study on perfect parking.
yes,
that
yes,
Our applicant.
right, okay. There's a lot of data and a lot of information on this, okay? I think that the restaurant one, which is another hot button within town, is gonna be more difficult, because if you look at what Sam put together, our numbers are actually probably lower than they should be for what, we need, okay? So I don't know that that's one that we're gonna be able to offer the community relief on, okay? I think one of the biggest things that I'd like to see us be able to do is do a better job with shared parking, okay? If you look around town, there are opportunities for people to park in places where they aren't currently.
Mhm.
You know, the Catholic Church gets $90,000 a year from the office building at 30 Monument Square, okay, to allow them to park in our parking lot during the day, okay? And I know they pay the church across the street as well, okay? I look at the project over at 166 Commonwealth Avenue, and one of the biggest problems that we have with that project, because we want it to be developed, it's gonna be so much better looking than a gas station there. But one of the biggest problems we have is they haven't done an adequate job of addressing the parking situation. That's my opinion. I hope you're not talking out of school. If I am, stop me. But across the street from that building, there is what used to be a Chrysler Jeep dealership.
Mhm.
They have all that parking there. It's not our job, but it would seem to me that there ought to be a way to facilitate that such that those people pay a lease, a 5-year lease, which is what we have with 30 Monument Square, for 10 parking spaces or something like that, okay? And that would make it easier for us to approve something like that. And I'm not saying we would, I don't, but
Mhm.
I think there's more of that that could be done, okay? You know, you look at what Woods Hill Table was allowed to go in there because they said they were gonna use the parking at the MBTA. You know, there are so few,
Well, there was also the, real estate office that went into that old bank building that had all that parking, yet refused to acknowledge that they were not gonna use it at night, and it could easily be
Right.
used by restaurants in the
right,
area.
right, you're right, yeah, you're right.
I think that in the zoning bylaw, there currently is provision to allow
For
for
shared parking,
shared
Right.
parking, but it's only those that are on site.
right,
And if it's off-site, then there's another section that deals with, you can have, off-site parking, you know, if it's within 600 feet,
right,
you provide this, you know, long-term lease.
right, right.
And I think both of those things can be looked at and updated, because even the shared parking one, it says, only if you're a bank, this and that.
Right,
Can you
right.
share with just this and that?
Right,
And I think, Sam's, one of his detailed conversations
right,
dealt more with a shared parking model based on time frame. So
Right.
not a specific use, but
Right.
most uses have a bank is this to this, and
Mhm.
this is the time frame where you use 10 spaces, but you know, the bank's open this long, but when you get down to this time frame, the banks generally only use, you know, 4 spaces. And doing a shared parking based on that hourly use model.
I think we could facilitate a lot by doing that, okay? And I mean, it doesn't, you know, I'm not even sure sometimes it's within our purview to do that. But I think if we make those more available to applicants, it might help us allow more things to happen, okay? You allowed, the Concord Art Gallery, or whatever you call it, to expand their space, even though they didn't have enough parking, because, you know, we gave them a letter saying you can park in our church parking lot if you want to. Now, we're not charging them for that, because we don't think it's gonna happen very often, okay? And they're not a, you know, for-profit organization, so it isn't like, you know, 30 Monument Square
Right.
building, okay? So, but I think there's more of that could be done, okay? You know, as I said before, restaurants are gonna be tough, okay? What I intend to do, as I said before, is talk to constituents within town, some of the committees. I wanna look hard at Bedford and Lexington, some of the other surrounding towns, and I know Sam has done that, so it's somewhat redundant, but I wanna do it on my own and look to see how it compares. I don't think you can use Sudbury or Wayland or those towns. They don't have the same downtown areas that we have, so I don't think their zoning parking would be applicable necessarily what we're doing, okay?
I think Bedford's gonna be hard too, because you think about the 2 big shopping centers that they have there.
Right,
Well,
and they have a lot of
shops.
parking.
Yeah.
I was thinking more about the downtown that they
Yeah.
have and how they dealt with that. They've allowed it to
Yeah.
expand. Okay, you know, they put in a bunch of shops on that main street
Yeah.
there. You know, how did they do that? There's restaurants and mixed use there and
I
stuff.
wonder if the historic downtown of Salem.
Yeah, I mean,
Might be
that's
another.
a good point, okay?
another,
So, and it's easy enough to look at all of that, okay, so, but I'll wait, see. Yeah.
But I think even, when you think of those, like, so how does, even on the Cape, you know, how do they handle it? Or some of the Cape towns or
Yeah, but don't you think they're a little more aggressive about letting people do what they want to because of the tourist revenue, I guess? I don't know. That,
yeah. I don't know,
but-
but
You
what
have
about,
to-
what about,
Think about where are there really vibrant downtowns?
What about like Kennebunk, Maine? You ever tried to park in Kennebunk, Maine? Okay,
I can't even.
Kennebunk Port, you know, during the
driving
summertime,
in
it's
Maine.
nuts, okay?
It's nuts.
So.
so that actually, that might be, you know, just like a good email to send out to board members is, you know, over the next week, kind of think, because I'm also thinking, like Old Sturbridge Village has a pretty historic pattern.
That
Right,
would be a good place, Somerville and Davis Square, what they do there.
well, but
That's a
see,
very-
that's a different story. Now, Somerville and Cambridge have just gotten rid of all of their parking,
Yeah.
okay? They no
Yeah.
longer,
Have parking requirements.
That's right.
And they have a much better
they're-
transit.
Yeah,
Right.
they do.
And then, you know,
They
other,
have street parking. I mean,
They
we
do.
can't park.
They do, but
Yeah.
in Davis Square is particularly very jammed, you know?
Right.
So,
but they have so much, you know,
but you. make it a
MBTA,
point
that there's, and there's so many people that don't have
They
any
walk.
cars at all nowadays,
walk,
okay,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of cities have done that. Austin, Texas, has gotten rid of all of their zoning on parking.
This is the second time somebody's met, so I know you can't park on the street at night in the winter, but I don't think there's a ban on parking on public streets at night
Would you talk to
In
the
the-
police?
in the summer. So,
Because they,
so,
you know, I've parked, you know, like at dusk, I've had police come and say, you have to get that car off the street. So I don't know. if
In
it's
summer,
police.
not in winter?
When you,
the summer?
when you parked on Main Street or on Nishotic, yeah. But you never see cars parked on Nishotic, okay?
No, because the visibility is really
Right.
bad.
Yeah,
And there's nobody, there's like, just like two little houses there and then
Right.
it's just,
yeah, well, you know what,
River.
I'm gonna find out.
yeah.
Okay,
so anyways, my plan is to gather all this data over the next couple of months, be able to make a presentation in September to the board about what my recommendations are, so that we have a month or two to sort of work through that before we have to make, you know, some decisions about what we present to annual report with town meeting in April of 2025. Okay, that makes sense?
Mhm.
Okay, that's my story. Yeah, and any thoughts that anybody has on it, you know, let me know, okay? And if there's any constituents that you know about that would like to talk about it, you know.
well, I know the Economic Vitality
Right.
Committee wants to
Right.
be
And I've
involved.
spoken to Mike about that,
Oh, good.
okay? We haven't got a
Okay.
date yet, but
Yeah, I would think we would need to do some sort of, community meeting. You know, just
Yeah, I
just to
would-
say,
Right.
you know.
I think we wanna have, you know, sort of a game plan together before
Right,
we,
so
before we do
maybe,
that, otherwise it'd be chaotic, I
maybe
think.
October.
Right.
Thinking
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Do you think we need more consultant support, Elizabeth? Should we, can you get a grant? You can't get a grant that quickly.
No, but
Yeah.
I do have, some transportation funds left over, because they were going to be earmarked to try and do a shuttle for this Patriots Day. So it didn't happen. So I do know some of those funds are gonna be allocated towards, advancing the Alphabet River Bridge. Cause, more than likely we'll have to amend the CRs and do a new CR on where Junction Village is. But that's not gonna take all of the funds, so.
I think what we
fairly
should
certain-
figure out what we want and then talk to Sam about, you know, utilize whatever's left with him.
Which is fine, except, that contract would have to be amended before June 30th. So
Or
that
you-
those funds get
Right.
allocated towards that contract. before the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, we'd have to use him.
No, we don't have to use it. I have to have
Okay.
the contract amended,
Okay,
the purchase order, executed.
right.
And those funds allocated for that contract.
I'd prefer to use him before then, but is that too tight? That'd give us 2 months.
Yeah,
We can talk about that.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so, all right.
so the only thing I would need to do is, check with our, interim procurement officer. Because, we're hiring, engineers, architects, planners. Don't need to go through the 30B procurement process. But we may have to, may not be able to amend the current contract. We may have to issue a separate contract. So
Okay,
I just need to check, on how much the current contract can be amended, or if we need a new contract, but
we
then
can figure that
then
out.
it would be, in the next, few weeks, figuring out what that scope is going to be.
Okay.
And then just moving forward.
Okay. So anybody wants to talk about parking, you'll funnel them to me, okay? And any thoughts you have on good places where the other towns that are appropriate for us to look at their zoning bylaws to see if there's anything,
I'll send out an email.
the city doesn't work because, as we said, Cambridge and Somerville have done away with parking completely, okay, so.
Right, and I think if you come out and say, we're using Cambridge as a model, I think.
Yeah, no,
people
yeah,
are
I
gonna
can
be
do
like,
How about Austin, Texas? Austin, Texas did the same thing, okay, so.
yeah, but I don't think people
Okay.
here.
And this,
Wanna
and
hear
I think it would be fun to explain to people, sort of the whole parking scenario about how much a parking spot costs when somebody is developing something, it goes from 5,000 to like $65,000, depending upon whether it's just, flat street parking, on the side lot, or whether it's an underground stuff, okay, so, I mean, I think it's important that they understand that, okay, so.
And so that would be another, thing, so, hopefully, we'll be transitioning out of the MBTA communities page. But, I think,
Let's go for it.
I think
You both.
the success that we had from that page, is, just tremendous. And so, basically developing a parking page, I need to just think about it a little bit more, because I don't want it to be confused, and have it become a issue with visitors or, tourism, thinking that,
They're
oh,
gonna
this
get
is
a
where I'm
parking
gonna how to
space.
find. So I need to think about how to, basically set it up and tag it properly,
Right.
but we can, start creating, those links to, all the different APA documents
Right,
and
right.
NAPC's study and have, here's links to things to read and kind of, starting an FAQ
Okay,
after September,
right,
when, the board figures out what it wants to move forward with for annual town meeting in 2025.
sounds like a plan. Okay,
Good.
all right,
And then I'll also figure out how to take Sam's document and make it legible without magnifying glasses.
well, I need to take all the documents that he did
Yeah.
and summarize them, and that's
Oh,
what, okay. Because there's a lot better information in these than there is in what he summarized, okay?
But a lot of what I'm not sure that we're ready for a lot of what he summarized, and because I listened to that presentation
Yeah.
from the guy from Revere.
Right,
I don't, and that was kind of very similar to his traffic demand management or
Right.
whatever it was. And so I don't see that this that's not low hanging fruit. That's like,
Right, right.
so
yeah.
I don't, when you say to summarize it, I think you're welcome to, but
Well-
I'm just thinking that, because it's very compelling, it's very kind of exciting what they're doing. They have these, for a development, you have like pluses and minuses, and you can do compensatory, you sort of look at, your needs
We
and-
we can't do that.
we can't.
Okay, that's
I-
way too complicated. Okay, we gotta keep this simple, okay?
I-
And that's what I talked about, the low hanging fruit of like, the multi-unit places that's easy to do. And I think about what the hot buttons are in town. Hot buttons are, multi-unit, residences. It's restaurants. I think that's gonna be a tough one, but I think that if we can expand upon this, Elizabeth just said the different shared parking concepts and making sure that people are cognizant of that, okay? Because I think there is space in town that can be better utilized. Look at the parking lot over here that Jim put in, that parking deck. You see about 3 cars there. Rarely. Okay, now that was required because he put in this place and he needed the parking to justify it, but
Right,
that's a waste of money and a waste of space.
something's not computing.
Right, yeah,
Mhm.
and that's the kind of thing that I think maybe we can help address, okay?
We could go out and take pictures of all the empty lots in town.
Well, yeah, I need to find out what the parameters are for like the parking lot over at the West Concord MBTA station, okay? Who owns that? MBTA owns some of it. We
In
own,
West Concord,
yes,
the town owns part of it.
part of it, and
The
MBTA.
MBTA owns part of
Part of
it, and the
right.
state owns part of it.
Oh, I didn't know the state had some ownership there too, okay?
There's
That'll make
three
it-
I knew there was MBTA in
There's
the town.
there's a MOU. And different easements, cause.
Right,
Concord Park has an access easement.
right,
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
yeah,
But we're really
There
not
is, but to
looking,
this day, we don't let people park in the town-owned part after commuting hours. And that could be spillover parking for any evening restaurant service. It might even be legal, I don't know, but there's a sign that clearly says you're not allowed to do that.
I
And,
think-
you know,
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
think there's a couple, there's just the zoning bylaw. You have this use, this
Right,
square feet
right,
footage, this is
right,
your park.
right,
And then there's more holistic.
Yeah.
Policy questions.
right,
So I think as the board moves forward with the zoning bylaw numbers conversation, it can identify these broader policy questions that need to be, discussed
Right,
further by, Public Works Commission and the Select Board, so instead of no parking on any street, in the village districts, because we want to have more mixed use and people not to, you can have one car, but, in Concord Center, second floor residential, a lot of those places don't have any parking. So if they could, like in Somerville, you park on one side of the street
Mhm.
for one night during the winter, and then, the next night you can park on the other side, but that's
yeah,
a much bigger
Right.
thing, but to
Mhm.
Sue's point, the question about allowing, overnight parking in, any municipal lot, great, you can park there overnight and, you have to be out by, 7 AM or it's happening in other communities.
right, right.
But,
It's a way for us to make life easier for people, okay? That's not a zoning change, okay? But there is some, meat that we can grab a hold of there, I think, okay?
so you're saying that we can look at municipal lots.
I think as the planning board's having these conversations, they can identify these policy question, here are some other options that have come up during our conversation. It's not for the planning board
Right.
to, to have any.
It's not within our, it's not
input.
within our purview.
It's not within your purview,
Right.
but you can say this, this option came up and, present that option.
We can make
to
recommendations.
The select
Yeah,
board
right.
and other, and, like Public Works Commission, or
Right.
saying, recommend that, further conversations happen, with those, boards and committees and people, on whether it's a viable option to
I
address.
wonder if the,
So right now, municipal lots and street parking is the purview of Public Works? I mean, who, like, I know the select board can
I think it's select board,
approve Public Works to make more lines on a street so that there can be parking on that street.
so it becomes it's a little bit bigger conversation, because it would be. So let's take the, parking on a public street overnight during the winter. So that would be under the purview of the select board, but the select board is not going to move forward without getting input from Concord Public Works, who is the one the one tasked with maintaining those spaces, plowing the roads. What would be the impact to operations, cost? So they would get feedback regarding that, get feedback from, the business owners
I
or.
can think they go to the police too, and
Yeah,
ask their
yeah,
opinion.
what's,
Yeah.
What is going to be the impact to operations, town budget, abutters, property owner. So I think it would be a much bigger conversation, but it is, in the purview of the select board as far as the, rules and regulations dealing with, public roads and, and municipal lots.
So
I wa-
my suggestion is then that one of your first stops also be a casual conversation with members of this select board, just figure out their temperature
Okay,
and figure out to what extent they would see, do they feel willing to consider this and what are their feelings about parking now? Because
I suspect they probably have some,
I would expect so too.
it will probably be more involved with street parking and the whole parking meter thing and all that stuff.
But-
But I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be going through this process and then.
Well, but-
run
but
into a
the-
wall with them
our
saying,
goal-
why,
Our goal is the zoning, okay, and that's
Right,
what,
Right,
that's what it's
that's what
about.
I'm
If this
saying.
other stuff comes into play as a recommendation, then, so be it, okay? But the goal is to look at the zoning requirements and say, okay, where can we make changes or where should we make changes that make it a better place to live and to work in and for people to be able to live their lives? Okay,
well, that's our purview, but it would certainly, I think, be helpful to the public if they saw things also moving in other aspects that belong to other committees. I wonder if we could try to, well, not to engage, but to suggest maybe the Economic Vitality Committee that they take another look at the question of parking agreements. If anybody remembers, Deborah's and the 5 and 10 in its day, and all of the businesses along there have an agreement where all of the buildings can be used and all of their customers. And that may gain efficiency. You don't uh, more parking at one day in another store, another day you don't have to go away because one store has run out of parking. But in order for businesses to actually hammer out one of those agreements, it's really hard. And it would sure be helpful if they could get some advice and also some encouragement and a bit of a push from a committee. But it's totally not in the purview of the planning board. It could be the select board, it could be the Economic Vitality Committee, and I think it would help the public see that the whole thing is working together if the whole thing was working together.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Well, thank you.
don't thank me yet, I haven't done much. We'll get
Oh, I
there.
think you've done a lot. Thank you, Mark.
This is a good opportunity for us, that's all, okay? And I think what, as I've said a couple times now, the low hanging fruit for the zoning, there's a couple of things there, but I don't know that we're gonna be able to make dramatic changes within the zoning bylaws, but we'll see. Okay,
Mhm. So if we had thoughts about Sam's chart, should we send those to you?
sure,
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Onward to board liaison reports, is that right? And town planner updates?
So I'll give a quick update. I know I let Mark and Linda know before the meeting started, but, the decision for the, Novo comprehensive permit at, Baker Ave was filed with the town clerk today. So there is a 20-day appeal period. Should the decision not be appealed and the town clerk certifies that, at that point, the town can submit to the state, for safe harbor. Cause we are definitely over 10%. And, we will have a safe harbor for 18 months. If they do not pull a building permit within that time frame. If they do pull a building permit within that time frame, then we are good till. I'm
a long
a
time.
long time. I'm gonna say even longer than 10 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because there's no way that there's gonna be that much residential building in town that would increase the number
Yeah,
of
I
units.
just, I have to kind of do the, the forward thinking calculation if Novo, gets built and if 216 units at Forest Ridge Road gets built, how does that change the denominator and,
Yeah,
and do that calculation, but I still think we're okay.
Okay,
you wanna hear about Hanscom Field?
of course.
So, the paperwork was filed for the environmental study, okay, which we have written a letter back to them saying that this is not correct, that your assumptions about a lot of things here are not appropriate, and you need to dig deeper into a bunch of things. The whole premise here from the Massport and from the developers is that they're going to reduce the number of flights in and out of Hanscom because they're gonna get rid of ferry flights. Ferry flights are when people, supposedly there's a waiting list for 37 hangars at Hanscom. In other words, there's people that are waiting to get hangars at Hanscom and they can't get them because there aren't enough space, okay? So that's why they're doing this project. And what they're saying is that those people that are waiting on hangars keep their planes someplace else, okay? Fly in here, pick up their customers or constituents or whatever, and then fly them off and then drop them off and fly back. So, okay, but the rule of thumb they used on that was that the flights were within 350 miles of Hanscom. They called those ferry flights. In other words, they were short hop flights coming in. That's not a correct assumption, okay? So they really, and they said with 3,000 and some odd ferry flights that would be reducing, wouldn't have to happen, okay? The numbers are not correct whatsoever, okay? So we've asked them to go back and, verify that with better data, because we said the data's no good, because that's the whole assumption about why they're doing this, okay? Is supposedly so that they can reduce the ferry flights, okay? And, they did reduce the number of hangars from 27 to 17, but they're not reducing the number of planes that are going to be hangared there. They're just reducing the hangar space, okay? If you looked at the presentation they put together, and perhaps you did, it's a lot of fancy footwork, we think, okay? We think something's probably gonna happen there. That's my conjecture, okay? But we're trying to make it as less onerous as we can on the communities that are part of, the Hanscom, which is basically Concord, Lexington, Bedford, and Lincoln. Those are the four communities that are impacted by Hanscom Field, okay? You know, we're concerned about current flights in and out in terms of noise, which that's the big thing everybody gets wound out about. But more importantly, about the pollutants that jets emit, as you know, that's a big deal, okay? You know, we're doing this small particulate study now to understand what kind of particulates the jets throw out. That, you know, by the woman from Tufts, okay? So there's some real concerns about that. But on the other hand, it is an economic driver for the area, okay? As you probably know, we get, there is a tax on jet fuel, okay? Where they tax every gallon of jet fuel, not every gallon, every dollar spent. It's a price of gasoline thing, okay? It's 5% that gets split up between the four towns. In 2023, Concord got a check for $620,000, okay? That's more than we've ever gotten before. It has to be because jet fuel must have gone up quite a bit, and I'm trying to figure that out, because I went for a Freedom of Information Act and got the number of gallons of jet fuel that was used in 2022 and 2023, and there were 12 million gallons of jet fuel sold in both those years. The numbers weren't that different, so it didn't. And when you try to figure out what the price of jet fuel is, it's all over the place. If you look at Signature Air, which is one of the main FBOs there, okay, flight-based operations, there's three of them there. You know, they say that jet fuel is $9.75 a gallon. If you go to, you know, the national website, it's like $3.45 a gallon. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out the numbers, and you know, because we should know that the town, you know, that's a lot of money, okay? And the town should know that whether we're getting ripped off or not, okay? All right, so I'm working on it, anyways. So
They don't have that data on the plane movements for like the past 10 years at all.
I get data every month on how many jets go in and out, okay? And that doesn't attribute. You can't attribute the increase in compensation for jet fuel on the number of jets taking off and going.
Because they could come in fueled up anyways and then leave, not have to
Right.
get fueled up.
That's right, okay, so that's why I had to know how many gallons.
Mhm.
And I know the gallon isn't that different from one year to the next, yet we got more money. So I have to attribute that to the fact that jet fuel must have gone up quite a bit, okay? Make sense? Anyways, I'm sort of having a little fun with it, as you can tell, okay? But the whole project is still in limbo, okay? There's a lot of hurdles that have to go over there. You know, there's, one of the things we talked about, there's three Superfund sites that are contiguous to that whole operation. What's the impact of what they're doing on those, okay? You know, the town of Bedford Planning Board and stuff has owned some of that property or controlled some of that property, so they have to approve all this stuff too. So there's a lot of work that has to be done.
And from Massport, how important is Hanscom? I mean, like, what, is this just?
It's really important to them from a logistics standpoint, okay, because they use that as an outlet for general aviation from Logan. Okay, so they try to pull all of these private jets and private aircraft out of Logan into Hanscom, okay? Because they control Hanscom, Worcester, and Logan, okay? Both Worcester and Logan are for commercial flights, okay?
Right,
We don't have any scheduled flights in or out of Hanscom, okay? And a scheduled flight is a flight that has a regular time for flying 5 days in a row, okay? We don't have any of that, okay? So it's all private stuff,
Or
okay?
chartered. Like you might see Delta flying to Hanscom, but it's a chartered flight.
That's correct, exactly, yeah,
got it,
yeah, so, okay.
okay.
It's interesting, okay? It's a big driver for this area, okay? And you know, one of the problems is it becomes emotional with people in terms of the private jet stuff, okay?
Mhm.
That it's, you know, these fat cats that use it for their personal use. And there is some of that, okay?
Oh, I'm sure.
My son works for Suffolk Construction, and they have a couple of jets they park over there. And Fish, who owns the place, has a place on the Cape. Goes to Hanscom every Friday afternoon, flies to the Cape, flies back, okay? It's his prerogative, okay? So, that drives people nuts,
Mhm.
so,
But in terms of Massport dollar and cents.
Oh, I'm sorry, you asked that question.
Also.
What is it? Yeah,
You know, but I mean, is.
no, Logan floats the boats. Logan, so, but Hanscom tries to be break even. This will put them above the line, okay?
They're break even?
Hanscom,
Is that what you're telling me?
yes,
Hanscom is break even?
right. They used to lose money and they were underwritten by Logan.
Of course. That would make you scream, wouldn't it?
Well, but don't
Yeah.
forget, it's better than having the jets go in and out of Logan. I mean, because Logan's already congested enough with the big scheduled aircraft. They don't want,
They can't
Private
handle-
stuff.
They can't handle it.
right,
Right. No, that I
Okay.
understand. I'm,
But has there been any discussion to limit the plane movements in and out? Like,
no,
they can't, they cap the amount of,
there is no, Hanscom is not a controlled airport, okay? In other words, they don't restrict flow in or out of Hanscom.
they used to restrict operating hours, but they don't.
Well, no, what there is there's a penalty for anybody that lands after 11 o'clock at night, okay? Now, we're saying the penalty should probably be higher because there's still a lot of night flights, and night flights are particularly disturbing to residents in the flight pattern, okay?
Yeah.
So,
just have to tell them.
there is a penalty, and I should know, I have the number someplace, I
It's
can't remember
okay.
what it is off the top of my head.
But it can't be high enough. I mean,
It's like,
Because-
it costs them an extra like $1,000 or something, I think.
yeah, like
Okay.
that doesn't make a difference
Right.
to,
Right,
yeah.
so,
Okay.
okay. I'll keep you posted, it's interesting,
Interesting.
so.
But aren't there also tax incentives that support private planes? I had been hearing about that.
So, they aren't taxed the same way an automobile is taxed and stuff. There are rules about it that allows people to write them off faster and things like that. Okay, so, yes, and that is part of what drives people crazy about private aviation, okay? You know, so obviously someone from Grumman or some one of these aircraft manufacturers, you know,
As friends.
right, at one point in time, so, okay,
Okay,
that's it.
good to know. Thank you for being on the forefront there.
I don't know as much as I should because they have their meetings the same time this is, okay, so.
Anything else?
Well,
No.
minutes.
Minutes.
Oh, minutes, yes. Yes,
Did
So
you fix the verbiage?
did I fix the verbiage?
Yeah, in one of the paragraphs, you repeated the phrase.
Lots of you showed me that mistake, so.
Oh, okay.
If you would please, accept the minutes with
Oh, okay, yeah,
amendment to
yeah.
delete.
yeah, we just, you know, and I'm not good at that, I just happened to catch that, that's all.
No,
Okay.
delete the, it's on page 1,
Right,
yeah.
it's where it
there's a-
talks about the
there's a-
town planner,
Yes,
Okay.
delete the double reference.
right.
okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes
That's amended.
as amended?
Sure,
wasn't
I
here.
move to approve the minutes of April 2, 2024 as amended.
I'll second it.
So you weren't,
I wasn't here,
Doesn't matter. you
It doesn't-
okay, that's fine, then
You're
I
allowed
go
to
yes.
vote.
okay, you're allowed to vote, yeah.
You are allowed to
Otherwise, we
vote.
wouldn't have a quorum, I guess, and then, so, okay, Mark Giddings,
Yes,
Rob Almeida,
Yes.
Sue Felshin,
Aye.
and myself, Linda Miller, yes. So with that, have a wonderful evening.